Good day everyone, this is John Fabi Bogas and welcome to our lecture video. And for today's discussion, together with my groupmates, I will be talking about PERT CPM and I hope that you will enjoy this video. Ano nga ba ang PERT CPM? Ang PERT CPM, or let's start first with the PERT, stands for Project Evaluation and Review Technique. It was developed in 1950s for Polaris Missile Project. And ang CPM naman ay nangangahulugang Critical Path Method. It was developed by DuPont Company and first used in chemical industry construction projects. Though ang dalawang concept na yun, or ang dalawang term na yun, ang PERT at CPM, have similarities in terms of concepts, ang kanilang basic differences ay ang CPM has a single estimate and ang PERT naman has 3 time estimates for activities and uses probability theory to find the chance of reaching the scheduled time. There are 3 main stages of project management. Ito ay ang planning, scheduling at ang controlling. Ang planning, ito ang ginagawa natin kung saan nililay natin ang ating objectives, kung ano ang gusto nating mangyari, and at the same time, pinagplaplanuhan din natin ang mga activities na gagawin natin. Ngayon na pagplanuhan na natin ang mga activities na ating gagawin, ay i-check naman natin kung ano ang mga kinakailangan natin para sa specific na task or para sa specific na activity na yon. Like, sino ang magtatrabaho nito, mga materials, and also the equipment. You also estimate ang cost ng activity na gagawin natin based sa ating plano. And finally, mag-create tayo ng visual map or ito ang tinatawag natin network diagram to show how all these tasks connect and depend on each other. Now, ang scheduling naman is after natin magplano or after natin na magkaroon ng plan, pinifigure out natin kung kailan mag-start ang specific activity at kung kailan mag-end ang specific activity. This also involves using techniques to see the earliest and the latest each task can start and finish. Now, para sa stage nito, ang pinaka-importante dito is to identify the critical path. Critical path is the sequence of tasks that will take the longest and determines the overall project timeline. You also figure out slack and float, which is extra math available for the non-critical tasks without delaying the whole project. Now, ang controlling naman ay ito ang stage kung saan kinikip track natin of how our project is actually going compared to the original plan. Kina-check natin kung ang plano ba at ang original plan ay magkatugma. You look at the progress and analyze any differences and take actions if needed. This might involve moving resources around, speeding up a certain task, and regularly reviewing the project status with results. I want you to think of our EDP. Diba before tayo nag-implementation, ang ating project na ginawa ay nagkaroon muna ng planning. Sumulat tayo ng paper kung saan isinulat natin ang ating mga plano for our implementation. Nagkaroon tayo ng series of planning meetings kasama ang mga kagrupo natin regarding sa ating mga gagawing activities, and schedule natin ang mga activities na ating gagawin, and at the same time, we really made sure na ang mga raw materials and ingredients ay nabibili lamang sa market at accessible lamang. Kasi maaaring ang EDP na ating gagawin or ang ating i-implement ay magiging malaki and it would go rarely as planned. So, ang mangyayari, kinakailangan natin ng isang sistema, isang flexible na system para matulungan tayo na ma-achieve kung ano yung plano na dapat natin gagawin. At ngayon, pag-uusapan natin yan kasi yan ang tinatawag nating PERT-SEM. Now, let's proceed with the 2 components of PERT CPM. Ito ay ang activity and ang pangalawa naman ay ang event. Ang activity represents an action and consumption of resources such as time, money, and energy required to complete a portion of a project. Activity is represented by an arrow. Makikita niyo dyan sa PPT, yan ang example, or yan ang picture. And ang event naman or ang node will always occur at the beginning and end of activity. The event has no resources and is represented by circle. Now, ang activity ay maaaring maging merge, ang event ay maaaring maging merge at maaaring maging burst. Ang merge event is when more than one activity comes and joins an event. At ang burst event naman is when more than one activity leaves an event. Ang activity ay maaaring maging preceding activity or maging succeeding activity. Ang activities performed before given events are known as preceding activities, and events performed after given event are non-succeeding events. No? Meron tayong tinatawag na dummy activity. Ang dummy activity ay ang imaginary activity which does not consume any resource, and time is called a dummy activity. Dummy activities are simply used to represent a connection between events in order to maintain a logic in the network. Ang dummy activity ay represented ng dotted line in a network at makikita nyo dyan sa picture na nasa taas.
Hello everyone, today we're gonna talk about errors needed to be avoided when constructing a network and rules when constructing a network. In this figure, when two activities start from the same event, they must not end at the same event. To avoid this error, introduce a dummy activity. The dummy activity ensures each activity has a unique start and end event, maintaining the correct logic of the network. In slide 2, this tells the errors that need to avoid is to never create loops in your network diagram. Loops suggest that activities repeat endlessly, which doesn't make sense in project scheduling. Each activity should move the project forward, not circle back to a previous point. In this slide, a proper network should have only one start event and one end event. Multiple starts or ends can confuse the project flow and make it hard to track overall progress. Use dummy activities if needed to ensure a single entry and exit point in your diagram. In this slide, a proper network should have only one start event and one end event. Multiple starts or ends can confuse the project flow and make it hard to track overall progress. Use dummy activities if needed to ensure a single entry and exit point in your diagram. In this figure, arrows in your network diagram should always flow in one direction, typically left to right. Mixing arrow direction makes the diagram hard to read and can lead to misinterpretation of the project sequence. Next is the rules in constructing a network. Number 1 is single activity can be represented more than once in a network. The length of an arrow has no significance. Number 2, the event number 1 is the start event, and the event with the highest number is the end event. Before an activity can be undertaken, all activities preceding it must be completed. The activities must follow a logical sequence or interrelationship between activities. Number 3, in assigning numbers to events, there should not be any duplication of events numbered in a network. 4, dummy activities must be used only if it is necessary to reduce the complexity of a network. And last, a network should have only one start event and one end event. In Figure A, the tasks follow a strict sequence from A, B, and up to C, while in Figure B, Task B and C can begin simultaneously after A. In Figure C, Task C starts only after both A and B are completed. And the last figure, Task C depends on both A and B, but Task D can begin after B alone.
For numbering the events using four-person's rule. So there are 3 steps for numbering the events using four-person's rule. So the first step is number the starting event of the project as 1. Then second, look at all the activities that go out from event 1 and cross them out. This means that they are done. So after doing this, some events will no longer have any activities going into them. This because the new starting points. You then give the next number, which is 2, to one of those. Then step 3, keep repeating this process. Remove finished activities and find events that have now no incoming activities and assign them the next number. Continue until you reach the final event, which should have the highest number. So there is an example of house construction project to explain how Fulkerson's rule is applied. So in the table, you will see the sequence of activities for house construction project. So and for us the solution, the first activity is prepare the house plan, and this starts from event 1 and ends at event 2. So the event 1 is the starting point. After that, construct the house starts at event 2 and ends at event 3. It can only begin after the house plan is done. Once the construction is complete, two activities can happen. fix the door and windows, and wire the house. So both of these starts at event 3 and go to 4 and 5 respectively. So after fixing the door and windows, which is the event 4, paint the house happens, ending at event 6. And then after wiring the house, which is the event 5, polish the door and windows happen, also ending at event 6. So the final event is 6. This is where all the path finish. So the diagram shows that how each activity is connected and must follow the order based on its completion.
Example number 2. Dito ay ipinapakita ang isang halimbawa ng proyekto sa pagtayo ng isang gusali. Ipinapakita nito ang isang table na naglalaman ng listahan ng mga aktibidad na kailangan gawin para sa proyekto, kasama ang maikling paglalarawan ng bawat aktibidad. Ipinapakita rin dito ang predecessor o ang aktibidad na kailangang matapos muna bago masimulan ang kasalukuyang aktibidad. Halimbawa, sa activity A, walang predecessor. Ibig sabihin ang pagbili ng lupa ay maaaring unang-una mong gawin. Activity B, wala ring predecessor. Ibig sabihin maaari mong simulan ang paggawa ng plano ng gusali kasabay ng pagbili mo ng lupa. Activity B, ang predecessor ay A. Hindi mo maaaring linisin ang lupa hanggat hindi mo pa ito nabibili. Activity D, ang mga predecessor ay A at B. Maaari mo lamang simulan ang pagkuha ng permiso pagkatapos mong mabili ang lupa at handa na ang plano at gusali. Kailangang tapos na ang pareho. Activity E, ang predecessor ay C. Hindi ka maaaring magsimulang magtayo hanggat hindi pa nalilinis ang lupa. Activity F, ang predecessor ay D. Hindi ka maaaring magpinta hanggat hindi pa nakukuha ang permiso. Dito naman ay nagpapakita ng solusyon sa paggawa ng network diagram batay sa impormasyon sa unang larawan. Ipinapakita nito ang tatlong magkakaibang diagram. Ang unang dalawang diagram ay nagpapakita ng mga posibleng pagkakamali sa paggawa ng network, kung saan hindi tama ang pagkakaroon ng parehong pinagmulan at dulo ng mga aktibidad o hindi wasto ang pagkakalarawan ng mga predecessor. Ang pangatlong diagram ang nagpapakita ng tamang paraan sa paggawa ng network diagram gamit ang isang dummy activity. Ang dummy activity ay isang lohikal na koneksyon na walang aktwal na trabaho o tagal, ngunit ginagamit upang ipakita ang isang dependency sa pagitan ng mga aktibidad. Sa tamang diagram, ginamit ang dummy activity upang maipakita na ang aktibidad na register and get approval o activity D ay nangangailangan ng parehong activity A or purchase of land at preparation of building.
Today, I'm going to discuss the critical path analysis. It is a way to find the longest sequence of tasks in a project that must be finished on time for the whole project to be completed as planned. If any task on this path is delayed, the entire project will be delayed. These important tasks are called critical activities. The critical path is like the most important part of your trip. If you get delayed at any of them, will make you arrive at your final destination later than planned. There might be other side trips you can take, but critical path is the direct route that sets your arrival time. Think of the table as a list of all the things we need to do for our project. Activity. This column lists each individual task we need to complete. Name. This gives a short description of what activity is. Predecessor. This tells us if we need to finish another task before we start this one. Time. This is estimated time will take to complete each activity. TE or earliest time. This is the absolute earliest we can begin this activity, considering when the task before it finished. TL. Latest time. This activity is very latest. We can finish this activity without pushing back the entire project's end date. TF. Total float. If the total float is 0, it means this activity is on our critical path. If we take any extra time on this task, the whole project will be delayed. FF or free float. This is more specific kind of wiggle room. It's how we can delay an activity without delaying the start of the very next task that depends on it. Circles. These circles numbered 1 through 10 represents events or milestone in our project. An event signifies the start or finish of one or more activities. Arrows or branches. The arrows connecting the circles represents the activity that needs to be done to move from one event to the next. Numbers above the arrow. The numbers written above each arrow indicates the duration required to complete the specific activity. Directions of arrow. The direction of the arrow shows the flow of the project and the dependency between activities. An activity can only start one of all the activities leading to its starting event have completed. Table detailing project activities with their time estimates: optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic. Calculated expected times, earliest, latest, starts and finish times, and total flow. To the right, a network diagram visually represents this activity and their dependencies. The key observation is that activities 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8, and 8 to 10 have zero total flow, making them critical activities that determine the project's overall duration. The critical path is highlighted to the network diagram. To determine the critical path, compute the earliest time and the latest time for each of the activity of the project. Since my other groupmates tackled the lesson, here are the calculation of TE and TL. The TE is calculated with a forward pass, indicates the earliest an event can occur with the project's earliest completion at 22 days. The TL is calculated with a backward pass, indicates the latest an event can occur without delaying the project. By comparing these two times, we can identify the critical path, the sequence of an event, and activities with no stacks, where any delay will extend the project's end date. The circles with numbers inside represents the milestone or event in your project. Think of them as checkpoints. The arrows connecting these circles represents the activity or the actual work that needs to be done. Each arrow usually has a letter next to it which refers to a specific task listed in the table above. The direction of the arrow shows order in which task needs to be done. For example, an arrow going from circle 1 to circle 2 means the activity represented by the arrow must be completed before you can move on to the whatever happens at the circle 2. So this diagram is basically a roadmap of your project, showing all the necessary steps and the order in which they need to be carried out to reach the final milestone. Usually the circles with the highest number. It helps you visualize the flow of work and identify which task depends on the others.
Hello everyone, I am Ms. Kim Cardenas, and today we're going to tackle about a key concept under the project management, which is the forward pass computation. So this method helps us compute for the earliest time spent in an event of a project. So a forward pass is like mapping out a road trip where we ask what is the earliest possible time we can finish a specific location. We can pass out a specific location if everything goes perfectly. So to get started, as an example, let's imagine that you are part of a student council who is about to plan out an entire school event. So you, as a member, you are tasked to book the venue. You are tasked to hire the performers. You're tasked for the setting up of the equipments, and other members of the council are also tasked on their own. So they also have their own tasks. So the forward pass helps us figure the earliest time each task can start or finish. In project management, we represent tasks as arrows or the activities, and we present the nodes as milestones. We present the milestones as nodes. So the forward pass moves from the project start to its end. So let us now compute for the earliest time for each node. So here I have an example. So we have 5 nodes here. So this is the first node, which is starting activity, which is activity A. Then we have activity B, C, D, and E. So to compute for the earliest time for each node, we have our formula here. So the earliest time for activity A is 0. It's because the first node is always 0 because there is no predecessor. So it means that there is no task needed to be completed to start the first activity or activity A. So it's always 0. So the earliest time for activity B is the formula is the earliest time for A, which is 0, and then the earliest time for B, which is 2, so it's 2 days. Then for letter C, for activity C, we have 2, which is the earliest time for activity B, and then 3 days for activity C. So it is a total of 5 days. And then for activity D, we have 5 days, which is a total of the activity C, and an additional 2 days, which is 7 days. And then for activity E, we have 7, which is the total, which is the earliest time for activity D, plus 2, which is equal to 9 days.
Hello everyone, I am Zurico Panya. So to continue, I'll be discussing the backward pass. So the main goal of backward pass is to compute the latest start or LS and latest finish for times for each activity. It is to ensure the project finishes on time without any delays. In backward pass, there are 5 steps, and the step 1 is the start at the end node. So the definition is take the EE or the earliest time and the final event. Then from forward pass, this will become the latest time or the AL of the end node. So ang formula is EE of node 5 or final node equals 11. So ito siya. Then step 2 then is move backward through the network. For each activity going into the current node, subtract the duration of the activity from the TL of the node and from that activity, and this gives the TL of the start node of the activity. The formula is AL start is equal to AL end minus duration, and the step 3 is this will handle the multiple paths. So if more than one activity goes into the node, it will take multiple paths backward. So take the minimum TL value from all paths to ensure no delays in any succeeding activity. And the step 4 is to repeat until the node is reached. Keep repeating the subtraction process until you compute TL for all nodes and reach the start node. So it is usually node 1. And the last step is step 5. So you compute the float of each activity to determine whether the activity is critical. You need to calculate float. So the formula for float is equal to TL start minus TE start, and if float is 0, therefore critical activity, so therefore it is called critical activity. Then this activities form the critical path, so any delay here will delay the project. And that's all.
Hello everyone, I'm Emanjan Tuling, and I will be explaining the determination of float and slack time. So what is float and slack time? It is the amount of time that a non-critical activity can be delayed without affecting the overall project duration. It's a measure of flexibility in scheduling that activity. So the total float of an activity is calculated in 2 equivalent ways. First is by start times, which is the total float equals to latest start time of activity minus to the earliest start time of activity. This is the difference between the latest and earliest start times of the activity. The second one is by total project times, which is total float equals to the result of latest allowable time minus the earliest expected time minus to the duration of the activity from node. So this is the difference between the total time available for the activity and the activity's duration. So let's jump to the second part, which is the free float. So what is a free float? It is the amount of time an activity can be delayed after its earliest finish time without delaying the earliest start time of its immediate succeeding activity. So the formula of the free float is free float equals to the result of the earliest start time of the succeeding activity minus to the earliest start time of the current activity minus then to the duration of the activity. So the other one is the independent float. So an independent float is the time by which the start of an activity can be delayed without affecting the earliest start time of any succeeding activities, assuming the preceding activity finishes at its latest allowable time. So the formula of the independent float is independent float equals to the result of earliest start time of the next activity minus to the latest start time of the current activity's predecessor minus then to the duration of the activity. So an important note is that if an independent float turns out to be negative, it is considered as zero.
This slide is about the Project Evaluation and Review Technique, or PERT, which is a way to estimate how long tasks in a project might take, especially when exact times aren't known, like in research or new product development. PERT helps by looking at 3 time estimates for each task. First is the optimistic time. This is the shortest time in which a task could be done, assuming everything goes perfectly. Next is the most likely time. This is the usual time it would take to complete the task, based on past experience under normal conditions. Last is the pessimistic time. This is the longest time that it might take if things go wrong or unexpected problems come up. By using these estimates, PERT gives a more realistic idea of how long a project will take. Instead of relying on just one guess, it's especially useful for planning and managing uncertain or complex projects. The Project Evaluation and Review Technique, or PERT, is a helpful way to plan and manage projects, especially when you're not sure exactly how long each task will take. After estimating 3 possible times for each task, optimistic, most likely, and pessimistic, PERT uses those to calculate the expected time to finish each activity. To understand how much the time might vary or how uncertain it is, PERT also calculates the variance, which tells us how spread out the possible completion times are. Once we know the expected time for the whole project, we can figure out the probability of finishing on time, like what are the chances the project will be done by the deadline. For that, we use a statistical method called the standard normal distribution, often shown in a bell curve, and it helps us estimate the likelihood that the actual completion time will be less than or equal to the scheduled time. In simple words, it tells us how confident we can be that the project will be done as planned. Here's a simple explanation of the example. Imagine you're managing a research and development or R&D project. You've already listed out all the tasks that need to be done, and for each task, you've estimated how long it might take at best, on average, and at worst. Now, you need to first draw the project network. This means creating a flowchart that shows how each task is connected and in what order they need to be completed. Next is find the critical path. This is the longest path through your project network, and it shows the tasks that directly affect the total project duration. If any task on this path is delayed, the whole project gets delayed. Third is calculate the chance of finishing the project in 19 days. Using the PERT and some statistical tools, you check if it's realistic to complete the project in 19 days. If it turns out that there's less than a 20% chance of finishing in that time, you then calculate the probability of finishing it in a more relaxed time frame, like 24 days. This helps you plan better and manage expectations. In the Project Evaluation and Review Technique, or PERT, once you've listed all the tasks and their time estimates, the next step is to create a network diagram. This diagram is like a roadmap of your project. It shows the sequence of tasks and how they depend on each other. After the diagram is ready, you calculate two important timing for each task. First is the earliest time or TE. The soonest a task can start and finish, assuming everything before it goes as planned. Next is the latest time or TL. The latest task can finish without delaying the whole project. By comparing these times, you can spot the critical path, the chain of tasks that determines how long the entire project will take. In this case, the critical path goes through tasks 1 to 4, 4 to 6, and 6 to 7, and the total project duration based on this path is 22 days. This means any delay in this task will delay the whole project, so they need special attention. Using PERT, we want to figure out how likely it is that a project can be finished within a certain number of days, like predicting the chances of meeting a deadline. In this example, we're checking if an R&D project can be completed in 19 days. Using a statistical method called the Z-score, we calculate the probability and find that there's only about a 9% chance of finishing in 19 days. That's pretty low. Since the chances are less than 20%, we look at a more relaxed deadline in 24 days and check the probability again. This time, the calculation shows about an 81.33% chance of finishing the project in 24 days, which is much more reassuring. And in short, there's a small chance of completing the project in 19 days, but a much higher chance of getting it done in 24 days. This kind of analysis helps project managers plan more realistically and avoid surprises.
Welcome to this short lecture on cost analysis in project management. Understanding the relationship between time and cost is crucial for successful project completion. In any project, two key elements are always intertwined: time and costs. They're directly proportional. Reducing the time often increases the cost, and vice versa. Think of building a house. You can speed up construction by hiring more workers, but that will significantly increase your labor costs. Let's define some key terms. Normal time is the time needed to complete an activity under normal conditions and at a normal costs. Crash time is the shortest possible time to complete the same activity, but it will come at an increased cost. The difference between these costs is what we're interested in. This difference is quantified by the cost slope. The cost slope represents the increase in cost per unit of time saved by crashing the project, meaning completing it faster than the normal time. It's calculated by subtracting the normal costs from the crash cost and dividing that by the difference between the normal time and crash time. Let's look at an example. Imagine a task that normally takes 4 days and costs 500 pesos. If we can complete it in 2 days by spending an additional 200 pesos, so we have a total of 700 pesos, then the cost slope is 700 minus 500 over 4 minus 2. So 700 minus 500 is 200 and 4 minus 2 is 2. So 200 divided 2 is equal to 100. So 100 pesos will be saved per day. Understanding cost slope allows project managers to make informed decisions. They can weigh the benefits of faster completion against the added expense. This analysis helps in optimal resource allocation and effective project planning.